Welcome to Screams from the Grave.
Yes.
You're probably
welcome.
wondering where the hell is Wayne? And my answer to you is we don't care. It's me and Greg tonight. So we're actually going to be covering a good album.
That's right. Wayne. And no one to complain about how they didn't get it.
Wait a minute. Is that what Wayne usually says?
Well, he said that about one of them. I don't know. The one that pissed me off the most was the first Fastway album. I don't understand how we can't like that.
I don't understand how anyone could not like that.
I know. It's horrible.
I mean, it's Fast Eddie Clark.
Exactly.
The only person I know who doesn't like it is Dave King, the singer, because he's a freaking sellout punk rock singer right now, but whatever.
He's a fucking whiner. That kid's got a lot to be grateful for that Eddie did for him in that band. But anyway, we could do a whole episode.
Yeah, well, fuck Dave King anyways. He's a wanker. But today we're going to talk about a missing gem from 1983. It is AC/DC's Flick of the Switch.
And it'll blow you sky high.
This is true. And I definitely have my story with this album. But let's hear from Greg. Greg, what was it about this album that made you say, hey, let's cover it on Screams from the Grave? Or what made you an AC/DC fan? Either or.
Well, actually, this is one of the ones I got with a bunch of other ones at one time that I found in a thrift store when I first, really started getting into just heavy music in general when I was about 12 or so. But I had Highway to Hell, If You Want Blood, Dirty Deeds, and Let There Be Rock, and then I got like Back in Black, and For Those About to Rock, Flick of the Switch, Fly on the Wall. Yeah, I got all four of those at the same time, and I loved it. I still do. I mean, song-wise, there's a couple duds on here. This is where they started to repeat themselves, but I think it's just as great as what came before it, and I actually like it a little bit better than Back in Black and For Those About to Rock because it has that raw 70s AC/DC edge that came back. This is the first time Angus really goes nuts on an album again since Power Age, honestly, and that was what I really liked about it.
Very cool. For me, I remember growing up, my brother Tony had Back in Black on cassette, and he had Fly on the Wall. Those are the only two cassettes from AC/DC that we had in our home. My cousins upstairs had the Bon Scott era. But I had never seen AC/DC. I only knew the song You Shook Me All Night Long. And then we had, and you're from Jersey originally, so you probably remember U68.
Yep.
Remember the Power Hour?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I ever saw what AC/DC looked like, and it was the video for Flick of the Switch. And that's the song that made me an AC/DC fan.
Nice.
And, I just remember, when I was older, the first AC/DC album that I ever owned, CD, the first CD from AC/DC that I ever owned was the double disc live set from 92.
Oh, Donington.
The Donington. Well, no, that one wasn't recorded.
Oh, no. Yeah. Never mind.
That was just
You're right. It's just live.
The best recordings from the Razor's Edge tour. And I noticed there's no songs from Fly on the Wall on this. And I'm sorry, not Fly on the Wall. Oh, jeez, I messed that up. There's no songs from Flick of... there were no songs from Fly on the Wall in it either. But there were definitely no songs from Flick of the Switch. So I went out and I got it on cassette. And this is going to come as a shock. It's the one AC/DC album that I've listened to the most. And
interesting.
I love it. I think it's a great album. I don't know why they refused to play anything from it. I mean, even when Axl Rose was subbing for Brian Johnson during the years where he was recuperating, they pulled out so many album cuts on that tour. Not one from Flick, not one from Fly. Well, we're not talking about Fly, but definitely not one any song from Flick of the Switch. And I actually did some research for this album, and apparently Atlantic Records felt that, they had no hits on this album, so they didn't feel the need to really release any singles or promote it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a shame, because, you know, I thought Flick of the Switch was a great title track.
Flick of the Switch, I think This House is on Fire, Rising Power, all of those could have been great songs. And even a couple, Guns for Hire, and then even a couple ones that I'm not really nuts about, but are really catchy, like Nervous Shakedown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that wasn't more of a hit.
Yeah, I will say this.
I mean, I am, but I'm not. Sorry.
I will say this, though. Two of my favorite songs on this, well, House is on Fire is my favorite. But All Aside One I love. I thought Landslide and Brain Shake were probably two of the albums were... No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Landslide and Badlands, I thought, were two songs. I thought they were the two dark horses of their respective sides. And, you know, I'm surprised that, you know, people who call themselves AC/DC fans, they don't talk about this album. I mean, you know, you figure, okay, casual fans would talk about them because, you know, they only know Hell's Bells, Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long, Highway to Hell. But, you know, you figure the hardcore fans, like, where's the love for this album? You know, and it kind of makes me realize, well, let's see. When did this album come out? And that was in 1983. 1983, you had Ozzy with Bark of the Moon. You had Sabbath with Born Again. You had Kiss with Lick It Up. You had so many more. There was one that I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah, you had Vices by Waysted. You had the Fastway album. You had so many great classic hard rock and heavy metal albums come out in that single year alone.
Yeah.
You know, so it's possible that this album got lost in the shuffle somewhere.
Well, it did, and
Pyromania. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, Pyromania, Metal Health. I mean, '83 was a huge year. It did. Well, I can't remember the other record. I'm trying to think of now, but anyway, Pyromania is a good example. But with that said, I mean, you can, at least I can tell why it wasn't more popular, because for the past two albums, they started to break commercially with Highway to Hell, but they really broke worldwide the biggest with Back in Black and For Those About to Rock. And, you know, that was only 80 and 81. This was 83. They just kind of jettisoned that sound that really the majority of the world knew them for, and just got rid of, Mutt Lange's more bombastic, perfect production, and really stripped down, like, all playing in one room type of raw power album. And it works for that, but the other part of that is, you know, they were having problems with Phil Rudd. I think the band was just really tired at this point, and it does show in some of the songwriting. They get a little repetitive on here, which they would kind of continue to do throughout the 80s. And I mean, I love this album, but I can definitely understand why only real hardcore AC/DC fans or people who grew up during that era that might have started with this album are really the big fans of it. What I don't understand is, for years the band had said they accomplished what they wanted to with it, and now their opinion kind of seems to be, we threw it together real quick, but I wouldn't really call it a great album, which I totally disagree with.
Well, that's the problem that bands on major labels face. Every new album is the quote-unquote best album that they ever recorded. You ask Nickel McBrain, every new Maiden album is the best album they ever recorded. Matter of Life and Death? I don't think so. Handful of
No
good songs.
Prayer for the Dying? I mean, come on.
You always got to stick it to me with that one. I love that album. I don't care what you say. But, they probably felt like, you know what, they had the cock of the walk because they had 3 multi-platinum albums with Mutt Lange, and they said, you know, we could do it ourselves. And they tried, and, you know, well, the audience count in the arenas didn't suffer. The album sales did, because I think they went from, 25 million worldwide. Well, definitely not at the time, but eventually with Back in Black. 5 million in the U.S. alone with For Those About to Rock. And this, well, no small feat, but compared to those two, it only went platinum in the United States. So,
Yep.
They're probably thinking to themselves, I guess we thought we had the ball, but we kind of dropped it with the album sales. But again, like album sales, to me, album sales are not as important as the quality of the songs. And yeah, I could see what you mean by there's a little, this is where they start to get repetitive. But, my favorite Van Halen album is the worst selling of the David Lee Roth era, Fair Warning, same as you. The fact that it only went double platinum, does that deter me from loving it? Absolutely not. So,
No.
I approach
And
this album the same way.
yeah, and honestly, even with the shit that is a little bit more repetitive, like I think it's Deep in the Hole, maybe, that uses, I think, the riff for Giving the Dog a Bone almost verbatim. But it works really well when the songs segue into each other on the album, where it sounds great. I mean, the weaker songs, it's nothing you want to skip. It works great with it, and his guitar work in the solos and other parts of it are awesome for the most part. The only songs I'm not really the craziest about is, like I mentioned, Nervous Shakedown. Oh,
I did enjoy that one, but I mean, the moment I heard This House is on Fire, well, I mean, from the opening track itself, Rising Power, up until Flick of the Switch, I mean, they nailed it out of the park with those three songs alone.
Yes, and then they do the exact same thing, just in a more retooled of old AC/DC way with more generic riffs on Nervous Shakedown. They just kill the momentum of that song by having three songs in the same kind of style that are awesome right before it.
Funny thing is about Nervous Shakedown is, AC/DC, everyone calls them a 3-chord band. Well, this was a song where they actually played more than 3 chords. I could see why you thought it kind of suffered a little bit. I didn't mind it. I mean, believe it or not, as repetitive as the choruses might be, this album has some of my favorite AC/DC choruses. I mean, they're the kinds that if they were to play them, I would be screaming my head off, singing along with them. But alas, it was not meant to be. But an interesting thing I found out about this album is that the engineer, I mean, AC/DC produced it, but the engineer for this album was Tony Platt. Now, if any Maiden fans out there know who Tony Platt is, he was the producer of the first album. The thing I'm going to say is, holy crap, what a difference in sound. The first Maiden album sounds like, them trying to be a punk band. This album sounds like AC/DC trying to, mix the rawness of their past history with the production of Mutt Lange with the guy that produced the original Iron Maiden. I'm like, how did that work? I don't know. What do you think? I mean, the production doesn't suffer. The engine, it sounds crisp.
I think it's a little dry sounding, but honestly, I don't mind the production that much. I think it captures the raw edge they were looking for really well. And it is nice and crisp and clear where you can hear everything. I don't really have an issue with it.
Yeah, neither do I. I would have to say it's probably the last album that had from AC/DC in the 80s that had the best production. Not saying that the songs on Fly on the Wall or Blow Up Your Video were bad. I'm just saying I thought these songs were produced better.
Definitely, but I think what they realized with this record is almost an exact similar situation to what happened with what Kiss did with Creatures of the Night. They, even though the Elder and Unmasked and all that is totally different from Back in Black and For Those About to Rock, still, it was doing a more commercial thing, and while it was still AC/DC, it was different for AC/DC, and they weren't really happy with what they were doing, so they expected to just reemerge and pick up where they left off, and I think it pissed off a good majority of the fan base outside of the hardcore fans. Same thing with when Kiss did Creatures of the Night right after The Elder. And then, they came back with Lick It Up, but took a more 80s sound and style throughout that. And then I think AC/DC did the same thing production-wise with Fly on the Wall and Blow Up Your Video.
Well, like I said, I mean, even with the lack of sales, it definitely didn't deter their, ticket sales. I mean, I think the following year, they headlined Donington, and Van Halen were the opening act. So... Yep. They were still a powerhouse name in the hard rock and metal world. So, I mean, it's...
I just kind of mean why it's more, less respected, I guess.
I guess, but, I mean, I don't know. I get what you're saying about it being less respected. I can't help but love it. I think that's just because of maybe is my own personal biases, which I'm totally willing to admit. Like I said, Flick of the Switch was the first video I ever saw from them, and I gravitated towards it. And I didn't realize that seeing other AC/DC videos later on, especially from the Fly on the Wall and Who Made Who years, Angus is known for wearing the schoolboy outfit. So I was like, wait a minute, I thought he was just a t-shirt shorts guy. No, he wore the whole thing till he does his street tease on stage. But, you'll have to see them in concert to see that. I'm happy to say I have seen them in concert, and holy crap, they were amazing. Did you ever get to see them?
No, I never did.
I have a funny story.
I had tickets to a show, I think on the Stiff Upper Lip tour, but it got canceled. And then clips and shit I saw after that, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of good on seeing them.
Actually, that's the tour that I saw. They had played the Garden. It was May 2001. So, oh my God, it's 10 years. No, it's 20. It's 20 years and 2 months. Yeah. And what happened? So I had a final that afternoon. It was Old Testament theology, because when you go to St. John's University, you have to take 3 theology courses. And if you're not Catholic, you can take whichever ones you want. Too bad they didn't offer Hare Krishna, but I digress. Anyway, and so I was really nervous because, it's Old Testament theology. And I'm like, I was born and raised a Christian. And, I'm like, I don't know Judaism. And I'm freaking out. I'm nervous as hell. Then all of a sudden, my buddy Hut comes up to me. He's like, Lou, I got something perfect that'll help you out. It's the first time in my life I ever smoked pot. And I took a couple of hits of it, and I was cool as a cucumber. I walked into the final. First one done, 45 minutes. Got an A+ on it.
All right.
And then I told the professor, I'm like, I'm going to AC/DC. And I went. I missed Buck Cherry, thank God. And I saw AC/DC, and it was beautiful.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's my AC/DC story. Yes. Leave your comments on the down below. Yeah.
Yes, anyway. Please do. Ask Lou any question you may desire about Old Testament theology.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, I forgot he had nothing to do with it. Anyway, so I guess, you said that This House is on Fire is your favorite song on the album? Well, which are your favorites from this?
Hang on. Let me bring up I don't know why I just don't grab the album, because I want to see it in front of me. Let's see. This house.
I can tell you right now, House is on Fire is my favorite. I mean, side 1 is my favorite on the album. I'd
have to pick This House is on Fire, although I do love Rising Power. You know what? Honestly, with as many different songs as they have, and I get that Hell's Bells is a great opener, but Rising Power is such a perfect opening song. I have some soundboard recordings of this tour where they opened with that. I so wish that was still in the set list. That is such a classic track.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd love for them to bring that, This House is on Fire, or Flick of the Switch. I mean, again, perfect, 1, 2, 3 punch right out of the bat with this album. Excuse me, AC/DC, lads, bring these songs back whenever you decide to tour again.
And Angus, just one personal suggestion I have that I think would make a great medley because I think it shares the spirit with the 70s era. Do Rocker segued into Brain Shake. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. Oh, my goodness.
That Brain Shake reminds me so much of when they, just a frantic way they would play Rocker live on, like, If You Want Blood and all that. Not that it's a repetition of that song. It just has the same feel as it. Brain Shake's my second favorite song on here.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess, out of 10, what would you give the album?
8.5.
That's pretty good. Again, historically, because it means that much to me, it's a 10. Deep in the Hole is probably the one reason why I would give it a 9. It's probably like the one song on the album that I'm like, but
yeah.
9.5. Okay, there.
Actually, no. You know what? I got to give it a 9 because I like it more than the previous two. So it has to rate.
You like it more than Back in Black and For Those About to Rock?
Yes.
All right.
I mean,
I
like the big sound they had. It worked for them really well. They're not bad records. I just like the rawness in AC/DC, and this album has more of that. Whereas the previous two, I hesitate.
Polished, let's face it, they were polished.
Polished. That's the exact word I was looking for. I almost said glitzy, but I'm like, no, that's not at all what I mean. Yeah, they're just more polished, with reverb and phase shifters or whatever. There's no guitar effects on this. It's just Angus and Malcolm tearing it up, and I love that.
That's why I love it too. And it's if you think about it, it's at the time, this album was the end of that first 80s era.
Yep.
With Back in Black and For Those About to Rock and this, because, I think right during the halfway point of recording this album, they fired Phil Rudd. They got Simon Wright, who at the time was the youngest guy in the band, 20 years old when he joined. And, I'd have to say that I like his drumming. I like his drumming with on from Fly on the Wall up until Blow Up Your Video. I thought the stuff he did with Dio was great. He's a great drummer. And, I know I give Vinny Appice a lot of love as far as Dio drummers go, but when I saw Dio perform Stargazer live, Simon Wright was the drummer, and he killed it. So,
did an awesome job.
They never have a bad drummer in the band, AC/DC. I mean, between Phil Rudd, Simon Wright, Chris Slade. I don't know why he doesn't get a lot of love.
Just maybe a big name, I think.
No, but you know what? He's dependable, and like I said, I heard AC/DC live before I heard If You Want Blood, You Got It, and he's the drummer on that album, and he plays in the pocket, keeps the beat going. He doesn't speed up, doesn't slow down. He's, thought he was a great drummer. He's still alive. So, but this album is also the end of the classic era. Yes.
Yes, and also of note, once Phil Rudd was gone, there were no longer any Australian-born members in the band.
This is true. This is true because Brian Johnson's British, Cliff Williams is British. The Young brothers were born in Scotland and moved to Australia. And Simon Wright's British. My God.
Yeah. Simon Wright doesn't play at all on the album, though. Phil finished all his tracks before they kicked him out of the band.
Well, he's back in the band, and hopefully he learned not to get caught trying to kill his methamphetamine dealer anymore. Hopefully.
Well, it's just history repeating himself. He got kicked out for his drug use here.
This is true. I actually read that I think it was on either the Back in Black tour or the For Those About to Rock tour, when they came to Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, Phil was incapacitated to a point where Malcolm like punched him in the face.
Yes, because he was so fucked up he could not play the 2 songs of the encore.
How do you not play the last 2 songs? You already played an hour and a half. God damn it!
I guess it would depend what he was on. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Oh. Well, anyways, glad to have him back in the band. The early '80s AC/DC. Well, of course, rest in peace, Malcolm Young, and Stevie Young, their nephew, has done such a great job. I thought filling in for him. I mean, it's like Malcolm's still there. Stevie doesn't move. He just stands there. He plays his Gretsch, and he kills the rhythm. So
yep.
And personally, I don't think the last 2 AC/DC albums suffer without Malcolm. I mean, his presence is definitely still there in the songs. So
it's still there.
Good.
I mean, it's there's 1 or 2 songs I still like on each album, and that's pretty much where I've been at with them since Razor's Edge.
What would you say is from not including anything from the Bon Scott era, because there were no bad albums in that era as far as I'm concerned? What would you say is your least favorite AC/DC album? I'd have to say for me it might be Blow Up Your Video.
That's a tough one. Yeah, I'd either have to pick Blow Up Your Video or Razor's Edge, but that's a tough one. Those are 2 albums I'm really not nuts about.
Well, yeah. And again,
but Blow Up Your Video has Heat Seeker on it.
It does, but on
and
the Double Live album, and this is my gripe with it, how do you have that and That's the Way I Want to Rock and Roll from Blow Up Your Video and not one song from Flick of the Switch?
I know. I honestly, I don't like that live record.
Well, I only still have it because my friend got Mick Foley to autograph it, so that's the only reason why it's there. But no, now if I would listen to AC/DC live, I'd listen to the If You Want Blood, You've Got It album, because the stuff they did with Bon was just the best stuff they ever done, and that's not taking anything away from anything Brian Johnson's done with them. Like I said, I love this album. I mean, if anything, the Brian Johnson years were my gateway to the classic AC/DC stuff. So, as much as I love Bon, I hold Brian up there with him as far as quality of output. So,
I heard them both at the same time. I still hold, these first 3 on the same level as the Bon material. Just like that era better, and Bon was just a better front man. That's all. More variety.
But, I will say this, though. Who made who? Good choice putting Right On that album.
Yes.
That's what made me a Bon fan. So
I wish that had one more Bon Scott song on it, at least.
Yeah. You could have picked any one of them. Would have been great. But anyways.
Yep. Yeah, but yeah, great album. It's a shame it's overlooked, and I really hope more people check it out, because you can't not like this as an AC/DC fan. I mean, I could kind of get Trash and Blow Up Your Video or even Fly on the Wall just because of the more 80s production, but this is just so raw and great.
Yeah.
There's plenty here to love.
It's balls out, in your face, meat and potatoes, hard rock music done as only as AC/DC could do it. So
and last thing I want to say about this is Atlantic famously hated the cover. They thought it was horrible. I think this cover is great, and I think it presents the aura of the album perfectly, because it's back to basics, Angus with his guitar flipping a power switch, and it's in black and white. It just makes perfect sense.
And drawn in pencil.
Yes.
And yes, iconic album cover. I love it. It's basic, but who cares?
Exactly. Just goes to show record company executives are generally wrong.
You say generally, I say always, but tomato, tomato.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. It's pretty good at selling soulless crap to the masses.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. I can't argue with that. But anyways, this album, I love it, and I'm glad you like it too. And hopefully you like it too. It is available on streaming media platforms. If you're too lazy to actually go out and buy a copy of yourself or have it delivered to your home, either by Amazon or Discogs, it's still in print. Go check it out. It's worth it.
Yes.
All right. So that wraps up this episode of Screams from the Grave. Mr. Greg, anything you want to push or plug?
Nope, just check us out and keep coming back to the Rat Salad Review channel.
That's right. And for more on what we do, check us out over at ratsaladreview.com. And please don't forget to subscribe to us on every available audio platform that you can find the podcast at. Also, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment here on YouTube. Tell your friends or tell your enemies. Either way, we'll still be here. And if you're on the ride with us, great. If not, you're missing out. Also, check out some of the other podcasts on the Rat Salad Review Network, including Suck My Balls, a South Park podcast, Old Man Metal's Musings, Beyond Bushido, our MMA pro wrestling podcast with Mr. James Lilliquist and Mr. Eric Adams. No relation to Manowar. And trying to think, who else is there? Am I missing any of the podcasts? Oh, yes, Harrison Bergeron with The Right Opinion, if you're into politics. If you're not, that's okay. We talk music here, so stick with us. And if you want to check out more about what I do, check me out over at musicisLifepodcast.com. And I promise, no more long-ass discography reviews. Next, from now on, we'll just do everything Greg says. If he says Corner, 5 albums, perfect, I'm in.
Yeah, hell, we could, well, maybe not Nuclear Assault. They got a couple terrible ones in there, but they only have like 6, though.
I wouldn't mind checking out the Waysted discography of the 80s. They had some good stuff. Well, maybe up until Save Your Prayers, but that's neither here nor there. But anyways,
yeah,
ratsaladreview.com and check me out, musicisLifepodcast.com. Thanks for checking out Screams from the Grave. Again, go find out more about Flick of the Switch from AC/DC for yourself. We think it's worth your time.
Yes, please do. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yep, and with that being said, we wish you all a good adieu. Good night. Screams from the Grave!
Yeah!
What?